Hi beautiful friends, welcome to another video review of what's going on in the Georgia legislation. So SB220 was reheard in the Regulated Industries Committee with a substitute. How it was last year, it didn't even make it through rules for the final vote on the floor. So after the blue ribbon committees, which Chairman Newton did not submit an official report after all the 4 study committee meetings, which I don't know why. Can you let us know, Chairman Newton? Anyway, he's got this sub, and it expands to vapes, but not flower as an inhalable or a steam thing. Okay, so I have a few issues, and I'll pop in my comments and react as I go, but the main issue I have is they didn't officially announce that it was going to be heard in the committee until 2 hours before the time of the meeting, which ended up getting pushed back to 3, but it makes it virtually impossible for the general public that you're making the rules for to show up and speak their opinion. But in addition to that, you still have not educated yourself on what the general public has been telling you throughout all the committee hearings. And that's pretty demoralizing, I think. And I think we can do better. And so here we are, not sure what's going to go on. It did pass, as you'll see in this hearing. It did pass the committee. But there are still issues with the bill, like Representative Derrick Jackson brought up that it says you can't use this medicine in public. He's like, well, I can pop an aspirin if I'm having a headache. Why can't I pop the cannabis medicine? And so Chairman Newton had a good point. He said, well, it's smelly if it's vaped. So it's like, okay, well, just say inhalables can't be used in public or can be only used in certain public places that allow for it. It's like, why does it have to be so black or white? Why can't we massage it a little bit and make it work for everyone? And yes, working hard on all of this stuff is part of it, but what's the point if it's not inclusive and it ends up being restrictive and harmful? So anyway, let's dive into it. Here's the hearing that happened yesterday.
Hello? Yeah, there you go. I want to welcome everybody to the House Regulated Industries Committee. We've got a few bills on the agenda today, and we do have a quorum. Yeah. We've got one bill that's unfinished from the last meeting that action was suspended.
So that I think the author of the bill honored them to let them do that within their office, yes, rather than in legislation.
Yes. All right. Further questions? Any questions from any of the committee members? All right. What's the will of the committee? I think we've already had. All right. We have in front of us Senate Bill 220. Dr. Newton, if you would come up. This was a bill that had been authored by Senator Brass. That basically we're scrapping that bill. Dr. Newton is going to be working from a lot of work from this past interim on the study committee on medical cannabis.
All right.
Is that a good preview for you?
Well, except for the scrapping part. I never scrap the Senate Rules Chairman's bills. I respectfully offer a potential substitute for this committee's consideration.
When you're up here 36 years, you can show that level of respect to them.
I'm going to write it down and remember that. Thank you, sir. And thank you for the opportunity to be with you all. I do want to just real briefly, we did have several members of this committee who served with me on the Speaker's Blue Ribbon Study Committee, Representative Al Williams, Representative Smith, Chairman Powell, Jordan, Ridley. Is he on this committee? Maybe not. So we did have a good representation from across this committee, but also many others. We have Dr. Robin Fowler, who's a citizen member of that committee, and Wesley Dunn, both with a lot of years of experience in this area. Our Blue Ribbon Committee, the Speaker asked us really to look at two things. He asked us to look at hemp-based THC, as that was proliferating from the 2018 Farm Bill and the efforts we were going to make to figure out how do we make sure that's regulated in comparison somewhat to the medical cannabis program in Georgia, which was established over 10 years ago, which is a lot more along the lines of a pharmaceutical grade. So we did look at that. There was not a request for a formal report, but the committee did come up with some general guidelines that are informed in this substitute. I'm working off of LC 339865S is the version that I'm working with. During that Blue Ribbon Study Committee, we did hear from the Georgia Access to Medical Cannabis Commission. That is the group that is working with the licensees and the dispensaries and the other ways to get medical cannabis to people. We did hear from, they did some statewide hearings that they informed us about, listening tour, talked to patients, dispensaries, and distributors in the industry. We heard from sheriffs and DAs. From all sides of this. We heard from highly respected individuals and groups who've examined a lot of the research. Everybody knows in the background that cannabis or THC is a Schedule I drug. It's in the process, potentially, of being moved to Schedule III, which would allow some research in the United States. But up till now, there's been minimal high-quality research, randomized control trials, things like that, certainly in the United States. I will tell you that the decisions and the recommendations that are informed in this substitute for SB220 are informed really by two things. One is compassion. A lot of over the last 10 years and from the very beginning, some illnesses, whether it's seizures, severe cancer, MS, Lou Gehrig's disease or ALS, different things like that. A lot of them medicine doesn't have an answer for. But we do have compassion, and there's a certain amount to where we thought maybe with MS or some other things that maybe there was a way we could make lives better or at least offer options when medical care is not clear, or that the potential for chronic pain, for example, some of the medicines are worse than the disease in certain cases when it comes to opioid addiction and problems like that. So that's basically an important part of this. But so it's balanced with both compassion, but at the same time science. We want to make sure that if this substance, THC is the active ingredient in most medical cannabis, but there's a lot of other active ingredients. But that's the main one that causes some questions regarding mood altering or euphoria, whatever kind of conditions. We wanted to make sure the addictive potential was minimized. So that's what's informed Senate Bill 220 and the potential House substitute. I will contrast it briefly with THC that is derived from hemp from the Farm Bill, much less regulated than the pharmaceutical grade production that we have here under strict regulations over the last 5 years. It's nearly unregulated in a lot of ways. There's so many problems and challenges with the vapes and gummies of questionable origin for potency, consistency between one dose and the next, nothing like what we expect and require out of our medical cannabis. So we did split those. The feds have now taken on probably more appropriately, what is the role of the 2018 Farm Bill and THC that's derived from hemp. And so we've set that aside, and that's not involved in SB 220 at all. That's the stuff sold in convenience stores and vape shops, gas stations, things like that. There's questions also about heavy metal contaminants in some of those vapes that were produced overseas. So I think even when the Department of Ag investigated, it was right at 50% that were non-compliant of the ones they were able to investigate, and the stores proliferated much quicker than anybody could imagine. So that's set aside. We're just dealing with medical cannabis, highly regulated pharmaceutical grade production, tight distribution and dispensaries and all that have been in our law for over 10 years. So if you don't mind, we do have a little booklet that kind of explains. I'll just briefly give you the top 5 goals that we have on the changes that we're recommending for a House substitute to SB 220. And number 1 is expanding what I call the delivery methods. I deal with a lot of medications and anywhere in medicine. Some are injectable, some are inhalable. We've got Narcan and epinephrine that no longer is an injection, but it's available through a nasal form. So we have liquids, capsules, tablets, sometimes injectables. And so we wanted to make sure that in the 10 years that's passed since we first started allowing low THC oil, one version of medical cannabis, that the different delivery methods would be available if those have seemed to be better for people, especially those, like I mentioned, with the conditions that we have such compassion for offering alternatives when we're still right now in the absence of high quality research to tell us it works or it doesn't. So that's expanding the product forms, expanding the qualifying conditions. We do that in some of these end stage, and the word end stage or the word severe might not have been appropriate. In some cases it is. We don't want a disease that has a very, that recently has gotten very good cures or a way to handle it like we do diabetes that's very well controlled. We wouldn't want people to go to this as their first line or them to be misled by something they might read on the internet or you see on YouTube. We wanted to make sure that when we did qualifying conditions that we gave careful consideration to whether medicine was able to meet the need or not. And some of them that we determined the terms severe and end stage were not necessarily best. For example, in multiple sclerosis, there's some individuals with spasm problems, Parkinson's as well, and you'd rather take it while you're still functional. You don't want to wait until you get really bad and then allow somebody an option. I will preface some of this by something that's clear in the rest of medicine is that for any particular condition, there may be a medication, and the 100, of all the patients that may have it, a third of them it may help a lot, a third of them it may help some, and a third of them it causes either allergic reaction or untoward side effects. That's the case. I know I have a son in obstetrics, OBGYN, and that's the case with female hormone therapy, that some people's symptoms are not a problem, some are really a problem, some have risk for blood clots. We trust doctors to look at those medications and under the care of a physician, a medical provider, to take a medication. And we don't know who's going to be in each of those thirds. Some it makes life wonderful, some are 50-50, and some it makes their life worse. We want to make sure that as long as this, unlike hemp-based THC, if this is under the direction of a physician, which all medical cannabis in Georgia is, we want to make sure that you've got somebody who's warned you about the potential side effects. You have their number. You can contact them if you start to have some of those, and your physician will be able to tell you, no, let's try something different. If it makes your paranoia worse with PTSD, we want to make sure somebody's been warned that that could be a problem. If you've seen any antidepressant medicine commercials, they'll say, some of these, and some people, increase the risk of suicide. So they tell you, the warning on television will tell your doctor if you have suicidal thoughts or something like that. What we like about the medical cannabis program, as opposed to hemp-based THC, is that everyone in Georgia is under a Georgia licensed medical provider. So expanding the qualifying conditions, improving patient access. This is just looking at things across the state. We have a very diverse state and a diversity of access to healthcare in general, metro areas, rural areas, in between. So we want to make sure, so some of the things we did in improving patient access. So expanding product forms, expanding qualifying conditions or clarifying them, improving patient access, expanding dispensary access, that has to do with some of the 1,000-foot setbacks, and finally, strengthening transparency and oversight on how we want to make sure that the message is communicated to both the registered patients, to the medical providers who may want to choose this. Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I can go through the bill pretty quickly with the booklet that everyone has and make sure to see if there's any questions at some point, or I'll go on through it. I will tell you one of the biggest things, our program used to be called, it's currently called low THC oil. There's one delivery method, if you will, that's allowed, and that's 5% oil. We have chosen to look at this more like almost every other medication I and any healthcare provider deal with, and that's in milligrams. That's how things are, whether an antibiotic comes in a liquid or an injection or a pill or a capsule, all of them, what we're looking at is how do we get the milligrams. And so what this bill proposes doing is, number one, changing low THC oil to medical cannabis, which is the accurate name of what we're offering to the public. We have been offering it, but this makes a little more clarity. And by not just specifying oil, it specifies that you can deliver a certain number of milligrams in a much more effective way, sometimes through a capsule or through an inhalation that's much more reliable. I will tell you, for example, some individuals who under the current oil doctors who recommend low THC oil, they will tell somebody, we'll give 3 rice-sized drops 3 times a day, or 2 black-eyed pea-sized drops. It's, droppers can be more accurate, but the whole delivery method is not as medical as we'd like it. We'd like to know, how many milligrams do you want me to take? How often? What is a risk of overdose and untoward side effects? What is an appropriate range? As we get more into the medical science, we start to do research with different levels of dosage. We think that milligrams of substance make much more sense. So we've gotten away from the 5% oil. I will tell you the current guideline, if we look on lines 66 through 68 are the ones that deal with changing the wording throughout code from low THC oil to medical cannabis. So that's kind of one of the, it's really nomenclature, but I think it's also an accuracy, and it reflects the medical nature. When we, if we go on page, there's some things that aren't included, and that would be any hemp-based products. If you look on line 87, then if we can turn on over to lines 111 through 113, that's an important, we wanted to make sure we had a limit, like the current bill, our current policy in Georgia limits you to 21-ounce containers of 5% oil. If you do the math for our math or chemistry geniuses, that's about 28,000 milligrams of THC that's currently allowed in Georgia. We've proposed lowering that, and there's been no known opposition, lowering that to 12,000 milligrams, which would be a maximum of 1,200 milligrams in any one package, and no more than 10 of those. So that's what you see on line 113. It's actually less than half of the previous limit, but we've checked, and even at some of the highest doses for end-stage cancer, that's far more than a month's worth, times several months, really, at the highest doses anybody regularly uses. If we turn on over to, if you don't mind, if you can turn over to line 211, that's where we describe the 1,200 milligram limit. And once again, like I say, we have reduced by over half the maximum amount that someone can have in their possession, we think, without any harm in the ability of patients to have access to what they need or what their doctor has recommended. We do on line 219 continue to avoid any food products infused, cookies, candies, things like that. This is, once again, that's one of our child-safe provisions. If we look on, I'm sorry, more in the language that we want to talk about where can these be located as they're looking at those, like I say, 1,000-foot circles around every, or I'm sorry, 1,000-foot radius, a 2,000-foot diameter circle around every church, whether it's a storefront or a church building, every school or any subset of a school. It was determined that perhaps the best thing that was more workable was to use the same kind of guidelines against liquor stores that are pretty prevalent in almost every county. They have guidelines. So what the bill does on lines 309 is make sure that we hold it under the same standards, as far as the protection. You don't want it across the street or next door to a school or to a church, but in most communities already have something well thought out that makes sense in their town for where distilled spirits or liquor stores would be. And so that's what that section does in 308 through 312. If you do look on lines 323 and following, there's some language there to where we do expand slightly the ability of marketing. I mean, it's not really marketing, it's really public information, but it's really just two main groups. People who are already registered, so they need to know about what the options are for different types of medication that might be available, of THC-related or cannabis-related medication. They might need to know different delivery forms that might be better for one person than another. So we want the registered patients to understand, and then we want medical providers. Many don't know, with the name low THC oil, they don't know that we have a medical cannabis program in Georgia and have had one for over 10 years, a compassionate medical cannabis program. And so those are the guidelines that we think is appropriate. Line 322 and following. And it prohibits any medical claim unless there's scientific evidence. And this, once again, this is providing information about medical cannabis directly to physicians and healthcare providers or to registered patients. So that's where you should not be seeing this on social media or on billboards in certain areas or whatever. It is still applying more. Frankly, we're seeming sometimes to be moving away from public advertising of prescription drugs. At least there's been some effort to look into doing that nationally, just because of the potential for confusion and maybe going back to the area where but that's still a work in progress on whether we're going to keep seeing the drug ads that we do. But we shouldn't be seeing those. These should be related to getting the information to the patients who are on the registry or the people who are taking care of them or will consider using this medicine. Once again, as we get it a little more tightly than, like I said, two black eye pea-sized drops is not the kind of dosing recommendation that many doctors are comfortable with. But taking 10 milligrams or 2 milligrams at bedtime is something or 5 milligrams at bedtime for severe insomnia or something is something doctors might be more comfortable with. If you go on over, we do on line 400 and 401 and following, line 401. So we do both continue and even reiterate that it's unlawful to smoke or any kind of combustion of medical cannabis products. So there is no smoking of marijuana. There's no growing your own. There's no bringing it or buying it from someone and smoking it. That's a very uncertain way to deliver a dose of medicine if we're still looking at this as medication, which we are in this bill. Vaporization, however, is a lot more. It's better. It's much easier to deliver a certain amount per inhalation that is more appropriate, and sometimes there is a quicker uptake. Now there was mixed discussion on whether quicker uptake is a good thing. In general, in some medications like opiates, we don't like quick uptake most of the time because that can increase the risk of dependence or addiction. But at the same time, there are some conditions, and I can tell you, I give IV fentanyl regularly in the emergency department if your hip's out of place or your child has a badly broken arm or leg. So there is a place for it. It's just we're not going to allow smoking. We do allow vaporization, which is a sub-combustion level, below that level, to deliver it in a vaporization manner. But it can't be done in any public place and only if you're over 21. So we don't want this out on the streets. We don't want somebody using a vape in a bar near you or an outdoor seating area or anything, even where tobacco smoking might be allowed. We want to make sure that we are still looking at this as medication and not recreational use. And this is a medication that's real easy to be used, not in a public place, and only by those over 21. So that's what lines 400 through 416 address. We do have some clarifications in lines 428 and following. Really just make it clear. There are some products the FDA has approved, cannabinoids or THC-based ones, that Epidiolex and some others. So we did have to change some language that used to say that you need to put in, every dispensary needs to say that these are not FDA approved and have never been researched, because it's not true anymore. 10 years ago it may have been more true, but today there are some FDA approved, not the ones that we're making in our facilities and dispensaries, but the line was not particularly clear. We do have some caregiver information starting in line 460. And once again, there are stages of these conditions, that, and in particular ones that do get severe, where you do need a caregiver to have capacity to help take care of you. So we do make that clear in lines 458 through 466, who can provide assistance with purchasing, and it's legal for them to possess this otherwise illegal cannabis product, but it allows them to possess the product under the restrictions caregiver. So that's important, we believe. We did change a couple, like that used to say severe amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, which is Lou Gehrig's disease. It's incurable, and it's we took out the severe end stage with regard to that one. We did change on line 478. We changed Crohn's disease to inflammatory bowel disease. Down in line 494, we do have lupus as a condition that we think it fits that earlier discussion of compassionate cannabis use or offer of that. We're not saying it cures something. We're just saying if your doctor believes it could help you, Georgia won't say it's illegal for them to try. We did add two that were a little bit informed in 495 and 496 at some of our recommendation, including me, that there are a number of people, while there's been a lot of negative on hemp-based THC and it's unregulated and really not meeting the consistency or potency or contaminant requirements that are carefully screened for in our medical cannabis, we did learn some people were using it for insomnia. If you look at Ambien and opiates and even diphenhydramine and over-the-counter medicines, there's some that just don't react well with people, and there's a number of people that found when we lowered the bar on when you could try THC, had some significant relief from severe insomnia problems. So we elected to add that. And one of the conditions that affects a lot of Georgians is severe arthritis. There are some, in addition to intake, there's some creams and balms and things like that I believe that have been shown in some people. Once again, we got that whole group. A third of them it might not help or make it worse, but some it actually helps. And if it helps their severe arthritis and helps them either stay at work or continue, we wanted to offer that as a suggestion for this committee's consideration to add those two in addition to lupus that was added in the Senate bill. Let's see. We do have a very crucial addition on line 504 and 505. It's in the definition of a physician with regard to this section of code, and it was really to answer a challenge that had been brought up informed by that same 100% of the patients I've mentioned a couple of times, is you need a doctor to be accessible to you. And out-of-state doctors on telemedicine, frankly, are not. And if you happen to be in a group that's subject, and it turns out your family member or your constituent is in the one with bad side effects, and you can't get to that doctor or get a hold of his or her practice, then we don't think that's doing you the justice that the patient deserves. So we include that the principal place of practice is located in Georgia. Once again, remember earlier, we are expanding the ability of both the Cannabis Commission and the licensees to inform healthcare providers about this program. And once again, I expect that to get more robust as soon as it goes federally from a Class 1 to a Class 3, and we should have Fort Valley State and Georgia, which were in the agricultural arena, who can start using this and testing it without worrying about and jeopardizing their federal funding for everything else they get. So that is just one of the things we wanted to make sure of, is that these are providers who not only are treating you and know you, but are accessible to you. In particular, if you need your dosage adjusted, or if you up or down, or if you're having a question about whether your side effects could be related to your cannabis, we want your doctor to be accessible to you. I believe the rest of the language really has to do with how DPH delivers the cards. We have tried to, originally this was under the medical board. We did move it more appropriately to the Department of Public Health several years ago. We still keep the 5-year card. We do recommend on line 540 that the department will issue an electronic card or both as the patient applies for the certification that they have one of the approved conditions. If you look up on 534, the 5 years is still in effect. The card is good for 5 years, but there's no need to do an annual renewal if you have one of the conditions that is irreversible or incurable. ALS, as I mentioned earlier, or metastatic cancer. Some of these, we deemed that it was not in the patient's best interest or the department's to try to require annual recertifications for a condition that will likely never change. So that's, I believe that answers a large part of what informed your special committee that the speaker assigned, the study committee. A lot of the information that we've gotten, it addresses that effort to take care of each of those areas, those 5 areas I mentioned, to expand the product forms, to clarify the qualifying conditions, to make sure that patients through their card and the DPH process would have access, to make sure that access, the other side of that access is where the dispensaries are, and then making sure the oversight and transparency are both tightened up by the fact that your doctor needs to be not just licensed in Georgia, but actually have a practice in Georgia. We think all those things can work together to where it balances the need for this medication, the results, the relief that many patients have gotten from this medication for these very difficult conditions, but balances that with science as well. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Glad to answer any questions.
All right. Well,
sorry for that.
Thank you.
I don't think I did the brevity too well, but I know it's an important bill that this committee has spent a lot of time on.
I want to thank you, good doctor, for all your hard work on this. This was basically deemed the public policy of the state and the legislature some, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. And if it hadn't been for the children that needed this cannabis where medicines didn't work, and the parents had brought them forward, it never would have got over the hump then. But I still tell people I remember probably one of the most joyous ovations that I'd ever seen was when the House passed the original cannabis bill and turned to the balcony to all of those children that it was a medical necessity. And since then, it's kind of dragged us well on. I mean,
that's what this bill is, I believe, an attempt to take care of.
And to the naysayers to this, I would say you need to take a good look. It's been cleaned up. It's been cleansed. We're moving forward with the progress. Or as I have told people, we're talking about medical cannabis. We're not talking about recreational. We're talking about something that helps. And I'm very noted for my opinion about medications. The stuff that's made in the pharmacy, to me, are way more dangerous than something that God puts natural on this earth. And that's my statement. I'm sticking to it.
You can combine the two. You can provide natural products, and you can make them in a pharmaceutical grade, quality, clean location.
But even on the federal level, probably the most inefficient form of government there is, they have now moved cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, basically misdemeanor type offenses. So that being said, I appreciate what you've done in here. And you do have a number of questions. Chairman Carpenter, I think you've been up there for a while.
Thank you so much, Chairman. So I know last time we were in this room, we talked about, there was conversations about the potency of the product. This legislation, I don't see, touches that. Is there thoughts on that?
Well, once again, what we wanted to do in looking at this from a medical viewpoint is not 5% or 25% or 17% or 50. It's really how many milligrams are being delivered. That's the way we do it with medical, and there'll be different concentrations depending on the delivery method. So we really have just changed really completely from that original effort at 5% oil, kind of a single pathway, to really it's the milligrams that matter. And that's the way it is in every, whether it's a teaspoon of a liquid or a small capsule. The percent in one might be different to deliver 500 milligrams of Rocephin, but or amoxicillin, but the milligrams are what really matter, not whether it's 5 cc's of liquid or a capsule.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I understand that argument.
So we're silent on that.
I'm just trying to, I was just trying to see what's I know I've heard that the actual flower itself currently is around 30% potency. I think that's the conversation we had. That's my only real heartburn is the conversation of if we're going to that 1,200 or 12,000 milligrams, at what potency? You see what I'm saying? Because on the street there's stuff you can cook. They cook it down and the potency's off the charts, and it might not be this big, but it'll cook you. So I mean that's the reality. I mean it's serious. So that's my only concern is that I don't see anything that touches that at all, and I don't know what the industry. If there's some industry standards, that would be great for us to know.
Once again, looking at this from a medical point of view, it really does boil down to the milligrams that are delivered to the patient, and a 1,200 milligram package maximum is the base of this bill as well. Many people for a lot of these conditions, may take 20 to 40 milligrams a day, 20 milligrams twice a day. That's not unusual dose for different conditions. Well, that's 1,200 milligrams will last you a month at that. So it's there is a maximum. Obviously, we had to put a maximum somewhere. It could be in your possession, but that's typically one of these packages will last many people a month. Sometimes 2 of the packages but it really is. Little chopped up pieces of a plant material weigh a lot less than a dropper full of oil. So one can have less or more milligrams, and even though it's really the amount of milligrams of THC that are delivered is what this bill encompasses.
Very good. Representative McCollum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have a question. I just wanted to thank you for this bill. For my brother and sister veterans that have PTSD, this is absolutely a huge, and as well as arthritis from being in the military, it's a big deal too. So thank you for this. And then also I wanted to thank you for making it's to be limited to their home. It's not out in public and all that. So thank you for that. That's the 2 things I wanted to say.
Thank you for that. Those were important to the committee as we studied it as well. Thank you.
Well, let's see where we are. Grandpa Al Williams.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Daddy. Mr. Chairman.
My senior.
I did want to say thank you, Representative, for chairing the committee. It was one of the best committees I've served on. I thought you heard everybody. It was very fair, very in-depth. I know a whole lot more about this stuff than I ever thought I would. And 2 members that are sitting out in the audience, Dr. Robin, it's good to see you, and Bill Wesley Dunn. Their input was invaluable during the entire. I thought about what the chairman was saying 10 years ago. I was in the legislature when those young people came and Governor Deal introduced them. And one young lady was experiencing about 100 seizures a day prior to this. And when I came to the legislature 23 years ago, if you'd have said that medical marijuana, medical hemp, any of that would have been around, I'd say you're crazy. You're talking about a whole new generation before that comes to Georgia. A whole lot of people have been helped. I couldn't help but think about a person raised as my brother who was a first cousin. Last 35 years of his life, he suffered from severe arthritis from the waist down. He suffered with nothing that really helped. Some people complained about, from the potency standpoint, that it was not strong enough the way it was, that would really affect and help them. I'm glad we went to the milligram, because I'll be frank with you, some black-eyed peas are bigger than others in South Georgia. So I hate those. That's Kentucky windage. So the milligrams, I think, moves a lot of confusion. But I had a question particularly. I think you said 1,200, but you meant 12,000. Oh, did you mean 1,200?
There are two restrictions. A package that can be sold is 1,200 milligrams maximum. It might be 800, it might be 400. The maximum total that you could have is really the equivalent of 10 of the packs at a maximum, so that's 12,000. Once again, current Georgia law allows 28,000 milligrams of THC under the current law. We're reducing that as we look at milligrams to a more appropriate medical maximum.
But I'm a little disappointed that we don't have the Muffet today to testify at every one of our meetings. that was the highlight of the meeting. Didn't teach us much, but it certainly relieved us some. But having listened to the testimony of so many people who suffered many of these illnesses, and to show, I think that we lose the word compassion if we don't do all we can to help them. I was disappointed when one of the young ladies who was really the face 10 years ago had to move to Colorado because we could not bring it up to the level that she could get the kind of relief that she desired. But this is a journey, and it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So we continue to work, but again, thank you for all of your help and all the members of the committee. It meant so much to this bill.
Well, thank you, sir. And I will say, once again, we heard from a lot. Compassion is two things, though. Compassion is when it's appropriate to allow it in a safe way, in a controlled way. But it's also compassion to those that do have recognized that there are untoward side effects in certain groups of people. There are dangerous side effects in other people. Part of compassion is recognizing that both of those things can be true, and by pulling it into Georgia, making it medical with milligrams and putting some science into it with the hope that the feds are going to let us test it more, I think we can take both sides of the compassion coin, which is be available for those with the side effects, while at the same time greatly improving the lives of those it helps. And I thank you for your work on the committee, sir.
I would hope that the federal government would eventually eliminate prescription advertising.
Well, that's the difference.
I get all fired up when I see it, and then I'm scared to death when they give you the side effects. And there are a few that are very interesting at very late night, but thank you for your work.
Yes, sir.
And I want to thank Representative Williams. As I look across this panel in here, maybe a lot of our opinions and attitudes about this are different than some. But as far as I can tell, there's only two of us that lived through the Vietnam era that's sitting on this committee. And we all saw, he and I both saw, broken soldiers and people that came back. And it was nothing except an addictive pharmaceutical drug, maybe. But we have seen the street weed that's been prevalent. And for the folks that talk about adulteration, if you don't accept what's there under the medical clause, then these folks are still remanded to go into the streets to possibly buy stuff that's adulterated either with fentanyl or whatever else. And at the end of the day, I don't know anything that's more addictive than opioids, quite frankly. This led to the rise of heroin because it's cheaper to buy heroin than it is to buy opioids for those that's been addicted. Enough of my soapbox. Number 27.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ridley.
I got just a few questions. And I've always supported this. I just got a few questions I want to clear up a little bit. So you don't have to have the doctor's not going to give you a prescription, right?
That hasn't changed, correct.
And he's giving you a recommendation.
That's the idea.
Okay, but you still got to have a license in order to purchase.
You have to have a card to legally possess, to obtain and possess it from these medical sources, yes.
So if we're doing, if that's what the plan is, why can it not be across from a school or church? I mean, if you got a pharmacy, they put it across from a school or church and you're fine. So why are we not, if this is medical grade, why does it matter where it's located at?
You raise an excellent question. This was probably a bit of a compromise to recognize that we've took all the restrictions off when the pharmacies, and I think once it goes to Schedule 3, I think many more pharmacies will be willing to carry it and not risk their Medicare federal funding that they get. So that's scared a lot of them now. But you raise a good point. We could have just made it the same rules as where pharmacies can go, which is, I think, anywhere. But I think in a spirit of compromise, common ground, I think it was, let's get rid of what's the onerous part, that the dispensaries who are trying to locate their dispensaries have found how difficult it is, and they've agreed that this limited adjustment of that, or decrease of those radiuses, if you will, I think will meet their needs. So.
Okay. And my next question is, you talk about vaporization of it, and there are several different kinds. There's the card, and then there's the dab pen, where it's a wax, it's highly concentrated. Is either of those, or
my understanding is that dab pens are not allowed in the construction of this bill when we talk about combustion and vaporization.
Can you show me what sections that's in? Because I've looked through this thing 2 or 3 times. I couldn't see if there was a percentage or where it talked about a concentrated type.
No, we did not ever specify we do allow the vaporization of medical cannabis. I'm sorry, I'm not as educated or as
and the reason I asked that because
I don't know.
I guess that's where I get a little bit kind of like Representative Carter down here was talking about, because I mean you're talking about a whole lot of difference in the percentage wise versus milligrams. I mean if you're talking about just like a regular vape cartridge at 80%, that's 800 milligrams. But if you go to a concentrate, then whenever you're talking about you're talking about a 0.5 gram is 80% is 800 milligrams. So there's a whole lot of difference because it's a whole lot more potent than a card would be.
A cartridge, you mean?
I'm a cartridge, yes.
Those are still limited to the milligram maximums for a delivery system. I don't know I'm not familiar.
Well, I guess the milligrams, though, they're different depending on what you're using it for. If it's liquid, I guess that figure would be different. It would come out to a different milligram than if it was concentrate. That would come out to a different milligram. The math would be a little bit different on each one of those.
My understanding is that and we have some people from the industry who may be able to speak to this at the testimony time. I'm not familiar at all. I don't believe. Is it a dab pen?
Yeah, it's a highly concentrated, so it comes out into like
is it a vape pen, or is it something?
Yeah, it's a vape pen. It looks like a honey almost in it, but it's like usually about 80 or 90% THC, which is 800 milligrams, but it's a whole lot different. But it's only it only takes like 0.5 grams, where a regular one would take 1 gram to equal that, and it's absorbed a whole lot quicker. So that's the reason I'm asking.
I'll see if some of the industry can speak to the dosage per delivery.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Right, thank you.
Let's see, 24.
24. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Chairman Newton, for bringing this bill, and I know all the work that was done on it, so grateful for that. I had a question, or if you could just educate me a little bit better on the requirement that the prescribing physicians be located in Georgia. And I know you touched on it. I may have missed one point. And I'm just curious right now, as it exists now, what percentage of medical cannabis prescriptions are coming from out of state? Has there been an issue or a problem related to out of state doctors making these? That's part one of my question. My understanding is that doctors have to not only be physically located, but have a practice in Georgia in order to do this.
Well, they always have to have a Georgia license.
Right.
They actually are practicing in Georgia primarily.
Practicing in Georgia. Okay. And I know you had mentioned accessibility, so I was just curious because I know with the advent of telehealth and the growth of telehealth, my understanding was that has actually made medical care more accessible to a lot of Georgians, not less. I'm thinking of rural areas. I'm not saying I'm opposed to that part of the bill. I'm just trying to understand, why we don't want telehealth doctors prescribing.
Well, once again, the goal is that the patient, once again, had three categories. The ones in the dangerous third, we want to make sure it's a two-way street. It's not just somebody who prescribes something from a different state and is never available. We want the patient to be able to contact their doctor. Frankly, the Department of Public Health wants to be able to contact the doctor. We've just found that is almost impossible to go on telehealth and get the same doctor. It may change, and it may be a little different now, but I know it depends on when they're online. If you look up doctors on different telehealth, then there's plenty of doctors in Georgia who do telehealth from urban areas or rural areas who offer telehealth within the state. They may be available to others outside the state. There was some reports that a physician had certified 2,000 of our patients. We think it was online. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact data on that, but that was raised in particular. This is a Senate bill, and so had been informed somewhat in the committee from things that the Senate were looking at, like adding lupus and other things. But at the same time, we want to make sure, from a medical point of view, with something especially that's still from a research point of view in its infancy, even though there's lots of anecdotal and correlation studies that are all around, there's also a lot of questionable side effect studies that are out there that we don't know which to believe. We want to make sure that the patients have access to a physician. We think there'll be plenty of them with the number of doctors licensed in Georgia that actually practice principally in Georgia.
Right. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, that's what I was wondering, if there had been any abuse of this. One physician writing 2,000 prescription, that does sound like there's something maybe questionable. There's like a lot of patients.
And I have nothing against those patients
getting,
I would like them to have, it makes me wonder whether that same physician is available when something else is going on.
Thank you for clarifying.
I may add to that. When we passed this, it's kind of hinky the way we had to pass it, because at that time it was a Schedule I drug. A lot of doctors, because of the federal regulations, they didn't want to do the prescriptions for it. They were scared that their federal drug license might be in jeopardy. And that's the reason the current way, and probably for a while the future way we've described these different illnesses, that if you have that illness, you go to your doctor, and that doctor only verifies that you have that disease. And then you go through the public health part to get a card and such as that. And the telemedicine, and don't get me wrong, I don't have a problem with it, but it kind of reminds me of something that I see on a lot of the junk mail that I get about you don't even have to go to a doctor if you need an ED drug. You just call somebody out in Colorado and they just write it to you for you. So I think there's a need that they verify that disease. And they have to have eyes on it, I would think. All right. Let's see. Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Newton, for this bill. Just two quick questions. On line number 407, in any manner in any public place by any individual. So will this also prohibit those adult facilities that says you can do vaping and hookahs and all that? Would this inadvertently hurt those kind of small businesses or establishments?
Once again, this is not a recreational use. This is kind of take a dose and wait 4 hours. It may not be the same goal as the kind of place you're describing.
And check this out. AI doesn't even include Georgia in the list of normal medical cannabis programs
with
because
the
it's so
expansion to
restrictive.
allowing, as
So
among
stop
many other delivery
pretending
methods,
that
vaporization.
we're anywhere
We wanted
close
to make
any
sure
other
as best
medical
we
cannabis
could we
program.
control the potential side effects of that policy, let's say. And so it's not meant to damage a small business or that would, I'm not sure anybody is delivering medical grade cannabis.
I mean, if I'm at a club, I can take an aspirin. I mean, there's nothing saying I can't take an aspirin at a club. I'm just asking you, I don't want a bill out there that's going to inadvertently hurt a business. And so when I'm reading line 407, in any manner, in any public place.
This is medical cannabis, right?
If I'm taking a medicinal drug and I'm so happen to be at a public place, somebody's wedding, and if I decide to administer that medicinal marijuana, is this bill going to preclude me from doing that? I understand it's not recreational, but if I got my card and I'm at a wedding, I'm at a church, I'm at a facility, I'm in a public place, and I want to administer this medicinal drug, there's nothing saying I can't do that. I can pop Percocets at church. I have a headache, I can pop Tylenol. I'm just trying to make sure I interpret line 407, because 407 to me says, in any manner, in any public place, by any individual.
You raise a good point. The goal of this, and now that I look at it a little more carefully, the goal was to preclude vaping in public.
Okay. All right.
You are correct that it looks like it would preclude using oil or other pills or whatever.
Because I got soldiers and sailors out there, and if they're having a episode and they're in a public place, Doc, you and I both know they need to administer that.
Well, we've tried to balance this with the most medications are not public, and frankly, most medications don't have secondhand consideration, like secondhand tobacco smoke or secondhand vaping. So in an effort to balance what is an increase in the number of people who are going to be able to get this, the number that are going to be eligible in Georgia through more conditions, through decreased on the severity requirement, and through more physicians being available as it comes from 1 to 2 on the schedule, DEA schedule, and more people doing it, we didn't want people exposed to secondhand vaporization in the same way nobody likes to be exposed to secondhand tobacco smoke either.
My hair smells like secondhand hookah.
And there's some danger with that. So this was an effort to balance it by saying you can use this medicinally, but you're going to need to use it outside of a public place. I'm not saying it's perfect. It is a compromise, but it does recognize the fact that we are still learning about and understanding better the dangers of downstream tobacco smoke. Same thing applies to secondhand vaping of any sort. And so that's what this effort was. It may be imperfect, but I think it was a reasonable place to be. And I'm not sure, I'd love to hear more, I'm not sure about a small business that this would significantly impact.
I just gave a couple of examples. It's not business, but public place. Follow on, Mr. Chairman.
You certainly may, and when we start the action on this bill, you'll be more than welcome to make an amendment to strike that sentence if you wish.
Yes, sir. I did get an opportunity to sit in on 1 and 2 of your blue ribbon, and I appreciate the work that you all put in. So I really do appreciate that. When we compare what we're doing in Georgia against other states, because I know we tend to always like to compare ourselves to other states, where do we fall by implementing these changes that you're proposing to this august body? Will that make us go from the bottom tier to a middle tier? Just out of curiosity.
Well, if you sat in one of those committees, whose bottom tier is on one person's is top tier on the other.
Right.
So it's a little tough to say.
Chairman Newton, with all due respect, no, it is not tough to say. Georgia is the bottom of the bottom of the bottom Okay, now let's just look at the home grow provisions that are allowed in the different states. Okay, at least more than half of the medical cannabis programs allow home grow, just different amounts. You can see from this list, Arizona up to 6 plants, 12 per household. Hawaii allows up to 10 plants. You know, here's the whole list, okay? Now these are the ones that don't allow home grow. And notice AI does not even include Georgia on the list. Georgia is at the bottom of the list, and AI says, well, Georgia's not included because they have such a restrictive program, but yeah, they don't allow home grow either. Okay? So now we're going to get to what AI says about flower. So what programs allow flower? Every single medical cannabis program, over 20 states have the medical cannabis program. All of them allow flower, except for Georgia. So how can you say it's tough to say? Georgia is the bottom of the bottom of the bottom.
Put it in a tier level, but I do believe by opening up, I believe we may be one of the few that doesn't allow vaporization as a delivery.
No, that's just vapor. I'm just talking about the entire bill as a whole. Because I remember sitting in during the
increasing
summer.
the severity, increasing the number of conditions. A lot of people would say that's dramatically improving it from a patient point of view. Tightening up on the physician's role and location is a way to tighten up the medical component. So really, it goes. I'm not sure if you can put them all in the same. We've relaxed the ability of DPH to deliver these cards. They can deliver them immediately, electronically. Frankly, it's not a may, it's a shall if the patient asks for it. So we've dramatically lowered the barriers in some areas. We have tried to make sure that, like I say, secondhand smoke, if you will, or vape is eliminated, and I'm not sure what other states have done about that. But I'm sorry, I don't know how we compare to other medical
from a medicinal
cannabis
standpoint, right? I just recall a couple of parents, when I stuck my head in the door, they were saying how they need to go to Colorado to do, and again, I didn't get the full context,
right,
but it sounded like this this family have to go to Denver, Colorado, because we have restrictions or limitations here in Georgia. And so I was just trying to figure out.
This bill will lower some of those restrictions from people who determined that they needed something other than the oil, which is what a lot of them wanted as an alternative delivery method to the one way we can do it here, which is 5% oil. So
it's okay, you can say it. They want flower, 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 flower. They do not want the vapes, but you're trying to escape and just use the vapes. But the flower is what everyone wants. Almost everyone except those who want the gummies to munch. So yeah, it's the flower. It's the flower. Y'all know this. You all know this.
I think we've answered some of those in this with the ability to, especially by milligrams, the ability to get different strains that people are convinced one strain helps them more than another. And I got to be honest, I'm not sure about all the science. There's frankly not a lot of what I would call real science because it's been unable to really do it.
Okay, so here we go. Why don't you learn about the strains? It takes 2 seconds. I can tell you right now. Are you going to listen? Are you? Listen. Are you listening? A different strain not only has different percentage THC and different percentage CBD and other cannabinoids and molecules, but it also has a different terpene profile that affects everyone differently. We've tried to tell you this so many times. So many different speakers have spoken on this during the Blue Ribbon Study Committee. If you would have written a report on it, you would have reviewed it and learned and acknowledged that different strains have different terpenes. There's pinene, there's limonene, there's beta-caryophyllene. All these terpenes affect the mind differently, and depending on what your illness is or your dis-ease, your imbalance, different things can do different things for the mind, and you might be sensitive to certain things. You know, if you have certain mental issues, then there are certain terpenes that might trigger you that aren't good. So having a perfect strain for you is the ideal medical cannabis medicine. Not these extractions in vapes, in oils that could have neotame and additives and seed oils and solvents and now like condensed pesticides. Okay? That's not medicine. Just the plant, the strain for you is medicine.
I got to be honest, I'm not sure about all the science. There's frankly not a lot of what I would call real science because it's been unable to really do it. But I look forward to being able to do it, and I think this bill will move us forward, and it'll move the ability of people to get information and then to act on it better.
Right here in Georgia. Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Ridley again.
Yes, sir. I just had one question. You said that the DPH shall issue a license if a patient asks for it.
We're looking on line 541. I think that the goal of that is that if somebody has been certified today and wants to go get medicine later today and signs on, or the doctor, the physician who certified them, it says they shall issue an electronic registration card. Obviously, it was taken 2 to 4 weeks to get a card in the mail once someone was.
But you're saying I can self-diagnose myself with any of these?
No, the doctor has to fill it out.
Oh, well, because when he was talking, you said that it says that.
Oh, yeah. Once a physician has reviewed it, if you look up in lines 529 and following, once they have certified the patient, then the registration card can be done.
So I got to send something in from the doctor to DPH.
You got to contact a doctor and be evaluated by a doctor. And
then he gives me the prescription.
The doctor transmits that to DPH.
But it's not a prescription. It's just saying that this person has.
All the doctor's role is to verify the disease or the condition, and then they forward that on, probably electronically. And they send that to DPH.
Okay, thank you.
Right, that is the 526 and following. The board will require the doctor to have a doctor-patient relationship.
Let's see where we are here. Number 18 again. Representative Jackson. Did you have another question? All right. All right, I don't see any more questions. Now, we have had hearings on this issue last year under the brass bill and subsequent bills. So what I'm going to do, we normally don't take testimony. So what I'm going to do is, we have a number of folks who wish to speak for or against. I would encourage you, as I call you out, you've got 60 seconds, because I see the redundancy out there that we've heard time and time again that went on and on and on. Mary Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's nice to see everyone again. I'd just like to thank you on behalf of the 33,000 patients that we have on this effort to move the cannabis program forward. My only recommendation would be, in regard to the medical physicians, not to require out-of-state doctors to be prohibited, since most of them are at least educated in medical cannabis. We have less than 700 doctors here. Half of them have no idea about medical cannabis. So I would encourage education as part of the bill. Thank you.
Terry Horde. Terry, we're going to bring you a mic over there if you don't mind, or just come on around to the table.
Push 12, Mr. Chairman. Get it?
Can everybody hear me? Did the microphone work? Okay, great. I'm Terry Ward, and I live with secondary progressive multiple sclerosis. I also have an identical twin that lives with MS, and we're both paralyzed from the neck down. I just have a little bit of movement in my left hand. I would have loved to have had medical cannabis when I was diagnosed 30 years ago. You see, what our disease is invisible. You have spasticity and you don't see it. Sometimes I have clonus, where your body just spasms, crazy. But if I didn't have the tinctures that are medical prescribed by my doctor, I would not be able to be here today, because I call this my bewitching hour. Between 4 and 6 every day, I'm exhausted, but I'm able to be here. I love to advocate. I'm advocating for others with other types of diseases because it's important to me. It's really important for the Department of Health to be sure that they deliver the medical cards quickly. When I first started getting mine, I was denied in the same condition I am right now. I was shocked that I would be withheld something that has worked so well for me. So I feel it's so important that we continue on with medical grade, not going to your gas station and buying what's off the shelf. It needs to be controlled, medical grade, by the physician, prescribed, and then we go to the appropriate place. But also, I feel it's really important to be able to know what you're getting, and also for us to be able to have these things. My life has been so improved. I'm sit on the board for the National MS Society. My identical twin and I have Twins Coast to Coast, where we advocate, inspire, and educate. Education is so important. So we need to make sure that all of you are understanding what cannabis is doing for patients like us, and it's vital.
Ms. Horde, we sure do appreciate you taking time to come up. Does any of the committee members, would y'all like to ask Ms. Horde a question? Anything more than she has already said? We thank you so very much. All right.
For what you're doing. Thank you, Dr. Fallon.
Mr. Michael Mumper.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. I have a lot of respect for everyone here. I'm really glad that the person who just spoke is getting support from the current medical marijuana program. Let's keep in mind that if we had the same, we have 35,000 people on the medical marijuana program. If we had the same proportion of our population that Florida does, they have 5% of the population as a medical marijuana card, we would have about 500,000 Georgians who have medical marijuana. When we consider that marijuana at 50% THC is addictive and impairing, we're talking about 500,000 daily users of marijuana, high potency by Georgians. This is, when we talk about milligrams, 7.5 milligrams to 10 milligrams will get you high. Let's just say 10 milligrams. Now, if we're going to give someone 40 milligrams a day, 12,000 milligrams is 300 days supply. Or really tempting to take a little bit more today and a little bit more the next day. So we're really giving people almost a year's supply, even at this lower amount. Why is this important? 50% THC, it's no longer a natural plant. This is a synthesized. It's not FDA approved. It's not supported by medical associations. Medical doctors do not get extensive training in this in school. nor do pharmacists. There is research, peer-reviewed, that shows the harms of medical marijuana. And if you want to read more, you can go to our website, www.gamarijuanapolicy.org, and go to the public statement. And we have a lot of published, peer-reviewed stuff. And I'm going to leave with this thought that even if we didn't have a lot of research on medical marijuana, when we're greatly expanding it to the state of Georgia, we've got to think to ourselves, is there any risk we're going to duplicate what happened to nicotine in the 90s when 7 heads of tobacco companies testified that nicotine was not addictive? Or are we going to risk what's happened in the late 90s with OxyContin when Purdue said it wasn't addictive? Before we jump to that level of expansion, let's wait for that science to prepare us for that. Thank you so much.
We appreciate that. Mike Griffith, probably the only person in this room that can vote for me.
Amen. As you and I have said, I'm your number one constituent. My name is Mike Griffin. I'm a public affairs representative with Georgia Baptist Mission Board. You have a copy of a resolution that we passed in 25. We do represent 1.4 million Georgians and over 3,400 churches. And I met with Senator Matt Brass last year. Sit there in his office. We had eyeball-to-eyeball contact, prayed with him. He explained everything to me. And, you know, I was here when this all passed 10 years ago. We never opposed it. And so we don't categorically, as a denomination, oppose medical marijuana. Our concern is the continued expansion of it. And the original bill, of course, had the 50% THC. Of course, it had smoking and vaping. Now this only has vaping. And again, our concern is that if we keep going in this direction, at some point we've got to draw a line, because it seems like every time we go an inch, we get a mile. And so we got to be careful that we don't have a de facto recreational marijuana legalization of our state if we keep going in this direction. So we think that we need to maintain these limits, be careful at continuing to add other type of issues that it can be treated with. We need to maintain of where it started out at and maintain that same type of principle. I appreciate Chairman Newton. I got an opportunity to testify in one of his hearings and just did a great job of working. And I think he's done a great job here at trying to give you a good bill. We still do have some concerns about this, though. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mike. And any questions? If not, we appreciate it. Elmore, that's Alexander.
I apologize for my handwriting. I'm a physician, so. Hello, Mr. Chairman and committee. I'm really, excuse me. I had surgery and I'm having some problems with my throat. I'm happy to be here because I think that I can bring a different perspective as a physician who is treating and who has been trained in cannabis medicine. And so what Dr. Newton talked about as far as milligram dosages, I am struggling right now to take care of patients like especially the veterans. A lot of my veterans have a lot of problems with not only anxiety, but the control of their conditions. And the medications that we have right now that I have at my disposal is not allowing me to be able to take care of them adequately. We also don't have enough diagnoses to take care of them. It's one thing to have a soldier who has come home after serving and get a diagnosis of PTSD, okay? But a lot of them have just severe anxiety. The PTSD by itself is excluding those people who have the same symptoms. They can't sleep, they can't engage with their families, they can't go out in public, but they still have the same symptoms of PTSD, but they haven't been diagnosed. But they have a diagnosis of anxiety. I can help these people, but I cannot help them under the current regulations. So what I'm asking for is, one, please look at these formulations that Dr. Newton talked about. Doing milligram dosages gives me a lot more flexibility to be able to treat my patients. Not everybody needs 10 milligrams or 20 milligrams. Some of them, especially my seniors, they need 1 or 2 milligrams, but that's to sleep. And if a person gets to sleep, they have less fear. When they wake up in the morning, they have less anxiety. So there's a lot of things that we're not considering when we look at these individuals and how much they're suffering. And I tell you, I'm seeing them now. Right now, I have 2 patients waiting on me this afternoon, and I'm doing them by telemedicine. Telemedicine, they called. I had to get to this meeting, so I could not do their appointment. But they are suffering so badly, I was almost ready to send both of them to the emergency room because of the amount of stress and anxiety they have within their homes. And these are seniors. The last thing I will say about this, so that we don't drag this on, is that there is a part of the process that is slowing us down greatly, and that is the notarized waiver. The notarized waiver is really slowing me down. I'm not opposed to the waiver, but right now in medicine, we have what is called implied consent. Someone signs that document, it says that they now have consented to whatever care that we're going to do, or in the case of the waiver, it talks about the potential problems that you could have with cannabis. It doesn't have to be notarized. My seniors can't get to a notary. Some of the caretakers are having difficulty getting to a notary, and it's also costing them to get those forms notarized, which is an additional cost on top of what the state is charging them and the office visits that we're charging. So if we could take out the notary, that would speed the process as well. Thank you.
I believe we have a question or two to the author.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On lines 567 through 70, we did eliminate the waiver requirement from the board. Now, that's not a section that deals with a notarization, but that may have been something additional that was put on by DPH that did require a waiver, and it was the waiver that we mentioned in the presentation where there's no FDA approved use for this and there's no scientific evidence or clinical benefit, and both those have really changed to a degree with some FDA approved THC products and with the fact that there is some research. I know it's debatable like all research, but I believe we've gotten rid of the waiver, but you raise a great point. There may be another place, and I think we were trying to deal with that on the board, taking out the requirement that there be a waiver that a patient says, we understand there's no clinical evidence and none of this has ever been FDA approved, because those things are not true anymore.
Well, that will help with an immediate card as well, because like these 2 patients that I have, I know they need immediate help. They have been on traditional medications and they're actually feeling worse. And so that's why they reached out to me.
I appreciate your support of the milligram method of making this medical program better. By the way, your practice is primarily located in Georgia?
It is.
Good. Thank you.
It is. But I do most of the cannabis medicine by telemedicine.
Sure. Yes. That's still allowed.
And we do actually. So we were talking about, you were asking like, what is the doctor's responsibility? I would love to be able to do a prescription, actually, because that's how I treat my patients, and I try to follow them that way. And we're actually asked to report twice a year on our patients. But right now, the most I can do, and I write it like a prescription when I send it to them, it's a recommendation. But I'm very clear to my patients that this is a recommendation, but I write it like it's a prescription. I find out what they're on, I look at their medications, and so there are physicians who are trying very, with all of sincerity, to do the best we can with this cannabis, because we know it helps. It does work. Right. It does work.
You have a couple of questions, I think. Chairman Carpenter.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I hear what you're saying, that the elderly may only need 2.5 milligrams and somebody else may need 10 milligrams. But as this legislation reads right now, just my understanding is we've got drinks, for instance. We got 5%ers, 10%ers, 50%ers. This would allow a single can to have 1,200 milligrams of THC if they so chose. I'm not saying they would.
There's no medical cannabis in
Let me make a
beverages.
correction. This doesn't deal with CDB. This is
No, I understand that.
This doesn't deal with CDB. This is
No, I understand that. But the switchback could theoretically be it or no?
No.
Yes, it is about CBD, and it's pronounced CBD, not CDB. And the reason why this is about CBD is because CBD is an essential part of the cannabis plant, whether or not we extract its THC or not. But when you have a flower in its whole perfect form, then there's CBD, there's CBG, there's CBN, there's THC. There's a whole panel of molecules that are different when it's a different strain. So if you have the strain cookies, you might have 10% CBD. If you have a strain lamb's bread, you might have 20% CBD and 5% THC or 20% THC. I don't know how high these strains are, but every strain has a different percentage of THC. That's not so hard to understand. But they say it's not about CBD. They said that to me right before I spoke with Scribbles and the Health Committee. Are they referring to the song, if you raise the CBD, then you lower the THC? If you raise the THC, then you lower the CBD? Because guess what? That's relative to THC and CBD and everything. If we're going to keep the God energy in the plant, it's all there.
Yeah.
No, I understand that. But the switchback could theoretically be it or no?
No.
Those are milligrams.
No.
Not percent, they're milligrams.
They're milligrams. But this is 1,200 milligrams, correct? We're saying a person can have 1,200 milligrams
In a package.
in a package. So
The
theoretically,
package or pack capsules.
but it's not. But this bill does not allow food, so it wouldn't be in a drink. So you're not gonna. What I'm saying is, you're not gonna get a medical card, go to a pharmacy or dispensary, and be able to buy a can of THC with 1,200 milligrams in it. I'm not saying that they make it that way, but this legislation, as I read it, would allow them to make it that way. Is that not correct? Okay, I may be confused. I just want to make sure.
All right, Mr. Ridley.
Okay. All right. Yeah. To what he's saying, kind of the same thing. If I can go to the dispensary though and get a pack of gummies that's 1,200 milligrams, correct?
The way it's written, yes.
Yes. And I could take all of them and I could go back tomorrow and get another one.
There was a max that for the month that people could get.
10 packs.
Now, potentially, just like anything, just like alcohol, right? People can abuse it. And there's different formulations of alcohol. You have, various drinks that have very little alcohol in them, and then you go all the way up to grain alcohol.
That's true.
We can't stop people from trying to hurt themselves, but we can give them recommendations.
Okay. I know it's going to be a big surprise to everybody in here, but
Yes,
I take Adderall.
Yes.
They give me 30 pills a month. I can't go back and get more than that until after that time runs out.
That's true.
So to what I think me and you were saying the same thing is, if you give me a recommendation for gummies that are X amount, I go and I get my 1,200 or whatever. I can take them all and I can go back next week and get another 1,200. You may be telling me to only take half of one a day per milligram, right? Is that correct? Are you giving me a dosage when you write a recommendation? I want you to take 20 milligrams a day, twice a day.
Okay, you're asking a great question. And, okay, I'm going to be honest. Thank you, sir. I would like to see, like some other states, that if I'm going to have the responsibility of certifying someone as a physician, I would like to be able to have the control as well.
Okay.
And so I would like to be able to see a prescription. But as the program is written, the best I can do to take care of my patients is write a recommendation. And so, yes, I write the recommendations, but I follow my patients, and I try to make sure they're safe.
Okay. Can I follow up with a question?
Yes, sir.
All right. If you tell me to take 20 milligrams a day.
Yes.
And I go and I take 200 milligrams a day, and I do something stupid and I get killed, can you be sued?
No.
Or do you have immunity from it?
As far as I know, because again, right now, I am not writing a prescription. I am making a recommendation. So my recommendation, if I tell someone, go take 2 Tylenol, and they take 8, and they get liver function problems, that's on the patient, that's not on me, because I made a recommendation. So that's the way the program is set up, is that we are recommending, and it is our duty to try and make sure that we pass along, accurate information to our patients. And so that's why we get the additional training. That's why I have it.
Okay, and then my last question is this: do you agree or disagree that the way the milligrams are set out per percentage differs by the way that's prepared? If it's a concentrate, that percentage versus milligrams is different than one that's not concentrated, and the percentage THC versus those milligrams.
Well, I think it depends, right? It depends on the formulation, and it depends on the delivery system. But there's a different effect with cannabis in each way that you ingest it as well.
Okay, so, let's just say on a vape pen. You give me a regular vape pen with a cartridge. You tell me to take it's supposed to do 20 milligrams per hit, right? Per puff or something. Whatever. I'm just making up numbers.
Okay.
But I walk into that dispensary and he says, hey, here's this pen that's concentrated. It has more in it. I can get that pen, correct?
Well, you can't enjoy it
right
now.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Not right now. Nobody's prescribed or recommended this yet because
if we
they haven't
pass
been
this
allowed
bill.
yet. Oh, yeah, if we pass the bill.
Yes, if we pass this bill and you tell me to go get a cartridge or go get a vape pen and take this amount of milligrams, I go into the dispensary, he sells me something other. I mean, it's still a vape pen, but it's completely different. I mean, it's like buying a bottle of liquor and a can of beer. It's completely different, the alcohol content.
I can't answer that because right now I'm not well versed in how the vapes are different in the delivery of them. But as they become a part of what we're doing in Georgia, that will be a part of my training so that I can advise my patients appropriately. So, and that's just like any other delivery system that we have in medicine right now. When those medications come out, we have to be trained on them, how they affect the body. But, something else to consider, the gentleman was talking about the concentrations. We have patients that have different tolerances, and cannabis has a different effect in everybody. So 5 milligrams in one person is not 5 milligram effect in another.
I agree.
So that's why, again, you have physicians involved so that when the patient says, hey, 5 milligrams was too much, then I tell them how to back it down. We teach them how to self-dose. But at the same time, there are people who can handle 40 milligrams with no problem because of things like narcotics. Their metabolism is much different. If somebody has been addicted to narcotics, they're going to need a much different dose than somebody who was on like 5 milligrams or who was never on narcotics. So they're going to probably need a 40 milligram dose because their metabolism is going to be different. You're going to have people who have different organ systems that are not functioning the same, and they may need a higher dose or they may not need a dose at all. For instance, someone who is missing a gallbladder, they're going to need a different delivery system. I can't help them right now because they need an inhalant in order to be able to get the absorption of the product. If we give it to them orally, they're not going to have any effect. So this is one of the reasons that we need a variety of different delivery systems.
Okay, thank you.
But I know what you're asking, yes.
Can I ask one question, Chairman?
Somebody number 25. No? No? All right, well, that's gone number 15 down there. It'd be Mr. McCollum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So to follow up on their question, to both physicians, so if you prescribe somebody oxycodone and you give them a prescription and then they come back and you give them 30 days, they come back in 15 and they're out, well, normally a physician would eventually cut them off. Would they not? I'm just asking.
That system is already in place.
Right. So would it not be the same for this? Are there stopgaps in there for this in the bill?
If you're asking, is there potential that someone could take what they were not prescribed but recommended by their physician and use it inappropriately? That is possible. There's frankly, it's because of the fact that it's not a prescription. The dispensaries are just limited to whatever Georgia says the maximum is, but they want to be responsible players as well. I think it is the same. You're right. Somebody could take the whole bottle of oxycodone at once, unlike what their doctor told them. It would be a problem. But
so, follow up, Mr. Chairman. Sure. So we're not comparing narcotics to this because there's not really a piece in there that regulates it on that aspect. I mean, obviously, when you go to the pharmacy to fill your oxycodone, the pharmacist has a duty, I guess, because they're trained in that as well. So we're sending them to a dispensary that really has no obligation to uphold. I mean, what's their consequences at the dispensary, and what is the consequences to the physician if they keep prescribing this? I mean, I guess I'm not. I think this is something good, but to their point, what do we have in place to stop? I mean, I know you can't legislate everything, but
well, that is true. The effort has been to say what is the most that the worst can, by putting a maximum that's legally acceptable to have in your possession. Just like it's 28,000 milligrams is the current maximum. We looked again more closely at that and said, what's the condition that would be the highest dose that for the end-stage Lou Gehrig's disease or whatever, and said, how much would somebody like that need? 46 times a day? We tried to imagine. We didn't want to restrict patients' ability to get the medicine, just like we give higher doses of opiates when it's appropriate, sometimes near the end of life. I think the milligrams allow it, but I think it's a balance. Maybe we should have 6,000 as the maximum. The problem is for the person who ends up needing 8,000, we've done them a disservice in a month, for example. So I know the dispensaries are pretty responsible. They're not pharmacists, and those are not pharmacists that are doing the dispensing. But they don't want this program to get in trouble with somebody diverting it to other people or misusing it themselves.
One more follow-up, Mr. Chairman, if I may. So I know we have something in place now for pseudoephedrine. Because obviously they've used that for meth, and when you go in and buy pseudoephedrine, you have to sign a thing, and they can track who bought it, extensive amounts. Am I correct on that?
Correct.
You're correct.
So, are they tracking this when you go in and sign up? Do we have a database that says this person went and got 40,000? I mean, over a 2 months period or whatever, or well, they're limited at 10,000. What is it? I'm sorry.
1,200 per package, and 10 of those packages max.
So
that'd be 12,000.
So they're 12,000.
12 grams is what it is, by the way. It's 12 grams
per month.
Ever in your possession.
Oh, period.
They do report this to the Medical Cannabis Commission already. Right now, they keep a list, I guess, by.
It's an
patient.
electronic database.
So electronic database is currently in effect.
So you could pull up John Smith with I guess his medical number and say he's got.
It's similar to the PDMP that we have for opiates and other addictive, but it's a different system because it's through the Cannabis Commission. But we have the same thing. I could look anybody up if I had the right approvals on. It's obviously in a patient. I can look up their opiates and other addictive benzodiazepines and other addictive substances too. Pharmacists can look up every medicine you have through an even better system.
But the dispensaries aren't pharmacists, so they don't have the dispensaries.
They're overseen by the Georgia Medical Cannabis Commission.
Okay.
And they have to report electronically to them.
Okay. All right. Well, I was on board, and then they brought that question, so that actually. It is a tiny bit concerning that nobody's tracking them. So
they aren't being tracked. They are being reported.
Okay.
And one more question, sir, if you don't mind, is you mentioned if you had a different delivery system available for a patient who can't swallow or has liver problems and you don't want the oral GI tract transfer. would you still aim for the number of milligrams that you want them to get, whether it's through a 2.5 milligram inhalation, and if you wanted them to have 10 milligrams, you would tell them 4 inhalations of this particular vape pen instead of a 10 milligram oral that wasn't working for them? Is that, if they needed 10 milligrams, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know, I mean, it doesn't matter what delivery system. What we're trying to do is treat the symptoms. And so we want the lowest, most effective dose to treat the patient to avoid any type of side effects. But getting to the side effects, again, when you talk about opioids, you know, there are a lot of deaths and there's a lot of variation in how dangerous these medications are. There have not been any deaths that have been reported from the amount of cannabis that someone's taking, THC. So, you know, I'm not a proponent of people taking more than they need. That's why we wanted to have the medical. But at the same time, it is a safer option than opioids.
You know, you went past your 60 seconds, but it wasn't your fault. I think if this continues, I need to borrow some of your Adderall, Jason. All right. Last up, Gary Herber. Mr. Herber, welcome.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your service to the state of Georgia. And my name is Gary Herber. I had the privilege of serving as a sergeant in the United States Army. And in 2009, my unit, the 10th Mountain Division, deployed to Afghanistan. And I came home with a traumatic brain injury, and I also came home with some unseen injuries and things that happened during that time. And I just want to, first of all, thank you for allowing veterans like myself from here in Georgia to benefit from a program like this. It's absolutely changed my life for the better. Like I said, I came home with a traumatic brain injury and intractable pain and some neurological damage to my neck and spinal cord that caused severe pain. And the VA treated me with opiates for the better part of 10 years. And I'm glad to say that as of this year, I'm 9 years clean off of all controlled medications, and medical cannabis has been a big part of that. And thank you. No, every one of you has made my life easier to deal with. As of now, I've lost more battle buddies and more comrades to suicide and to overdose than I did to combat. These overdoses are happening with controlled medications delivered straight to the veterans' mailbox on a regular basis, and it was ruining my life. I was on Dilaudid for over 6 years, and I absolutely was a shell of the person you see in front of you. And it's because of this program that I've been able to break out of that shell and actually be a functioning member of society, and now proud to represent my my veteran community in a positive light. And as far as, I think all the questions have been answered, as far as anything that I could say to help you guys understand the benefits of this. And to the gentleman on the end, I'd like to just anecdotally say, personally speaking, you take too much, you're not going to do it again. Okay, this is a medicine that helps, but also can make your day really uneventful or unspectacular. And I have extended my dosages in the past, and I'm careful not to do that because that's not a fun experience. And so thank you again for letting me speak, and thank you for your service to this great
Thank you, Mr. Herbert, and we appreciate you and for all your sacrifices. All right, committee. Oh my goodness. Mr. Jackson, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Terry Horde made mention about a number of doctors who we will limit if this bill, and I just want to get the clarity, Ms. Terry, if you could, because I've been trying to find where you're talking about the number of doctors who in-state, out-of-state, or something like that you mentioned. Yes, ma'am.
Currently at the Department of Health, they've listed at less than 700 physicians in Georgia right now. Most of them are not educated in cannabis, as you well know. We do have out-of-state doctors that are registered in Georgia. All they have to do is provide the medical composite board with their credentials in the state that they're already in. And I believe there's a fee of $500 to the medical composite board to certify them here.
So out-of-state doctors, thank you for that clarity. So out-of-state doctors,
Yes, they have to send their information to the medical composite board to prove that they have a license in another state. Then within 30 to 60 days, the medical composite board in the state of Georgia grants them a Georgia medical cannabis license, grants them a license to practice medicine in Georgia. Then they have to submit to the cannabis board to be approved as a cannabis physician. But that's only a list. There are no requirements to get on the cannabis board, to get on the cannabis list. Is that what you're asking?
right? But there's nothing in Senate Bill 220 that prohibits out-of-state doctors from doing this.
Yes,
correct?
They are trying to prevent out-of-state doctors by requiring them to have a physical practice in Georgia. And that's not currently a requirement.
Is that true?
Yes, that is true. We are, the effort is to give the kind of care that really was just described, and the fact that it is different in every person. And out-of-state located telemedicine is not the same degree of commitment to Georgia patients as in-state. I think that one of the other questions about there's not enough educated is one of the goals of this bill as well, to encourage, not just allow, but to encourage education of medical providers. And I believe the other piece that's going on outside our purview, though, is the change from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 that has been a fear of a lot of doctors to be willing to get involved. And as he mentioned, it's not the normal way of practice with writing a prescription. You have to write a recommendation for a dose and how many times, but it's not, goes through a pharmacy. So I think we're trying to answer the questions that were raised, that there are not enough doctors, and I would say doctors who are able to respond to the downsides of this. As we heard briefly, there are some people who recognize there are downsides to this medication for certain people. We want to make sure that the communication is available two ways. We think that would be improved if they had a practice primarily in Georgia. We're going to get more people, more physicians educated, and the schedule change is going to make people more willing to do this. And so I think it will answer that 700 doctor number problem.
Mr. Chairman, follow up, sir? So since COVID, I've seen this august body, Regulated Industries. We've done more compacts for doctors and nurses and other licensed for a reason, because we don't have enough nurses, we don't have enough neurologists, we don't have, fill in the blank. And so having a requirement for this physician to actually have a practice in Georgia, right? I mean, they may be licensed in Georgia, but they actually live in Virginia, but they have a license in Georgia and South Carolina. And so we've done compacts of this august body to help make sure that Georgians have the necessary care. And so I think this would do more harm than good, that's saying we're requiring for you to have a place of practice, but when they're in Georgia for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the travel nurses, travel doctors, they may be at Emory, they may be at Grady for 2 weeks. So would that not suffice?
I think the goal of the bill is to have as your primary location. The doctors like the one we heard from is a great example of the fact that the physicians who are familiar with this may not be distributed across Georgia for physical. So we're still, of course, we still allow certification by a Georgia-based, Georgia-licensed physician, and the telemedicine he mentioned. So we allow it by telemedicine. What we had seen, as we mentioned, somebody asked about, what about have we seen any problems? I think Representative Ehrhart mentioned it. We've seen some questions as to whether or not there was really other parts of Georgia law, that you already have a doctor-patient relationship with this individual, that you treat them for this condition. This is in current Georgia law, not 220. That's in current Georgia law. We think that was being overlooked or maybe even violated by out-of-state doctors with no practice in Georgia. And so in an effort to do that, we want to allow telemedicine, but make it with a physician that's in Georgia. And they can still have, and frankly, if they're available to their patients, if they're educated on both the current and newer methods that are going to be allowed, I think that's what's best for the patient. Remember, this is a highly controlled substance, maybe one of the most controlled that we've ever discussed. I mean, oxycodone, as was mentioned, is Schedule 2, not Schedule 1. So there is a tight control over this. Tighter. We would never allow Schedule 2s to be prescribed by out-of-state Georgia licensed doctors. We don't allow that. So it was reasonable, and in the current state, it's still a Schedule 1 medication as we sit here now. Even when it's a Schedule 3, it's going to be a highly, I won't say highly risky, but it is a highly controlled substance still, even if the schedule changes at the DEA level. And I think it warrants a degree of oversight that's just better done if someone is in the state for their practice. And I do believe with education of the physicians being called for in this and the upcoming federal change, there's going to be plenty more physicians available, both in person and by telemedicine, as the presenter described, the physician described a moment ago. I think there's going to be ample opportunity for everyone to who has a family member or themselves that need this. I think in a highly controlled area, it is tightly controlled, though. You're right.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman.
Representative Williams.
Oh, thank you. Let me say this. I have going to be brief because while we're trying to make sure nobody has to go to jail by getting regulations right here, I'm supposed to be in another meeting making sure we keep them in when you do send them. But I have great respect for the lady. I've listened to your several testimonies, and I know you're more versed on this than I am, but let me just say this, and I'm listening to Dr. Newton here, but I know it comes as a shock, but not all doctors are crime-free. So I want to make sure that a doctor this is a relatively new industry. We got to be able to get a hold of them. I don't want some guy in Virginia who, it's very tempting. This can be very, very lucrative. For a 10-minute authorization of a telephone, thousands of dollars. I remember what happened with all these pain clinics we had. My goodness, they were here and were robbing us blind. We've got to have some control, and the only control is to have somebody practicing where the GBI can go knock on the door this evening, not tomorrow, and get this straight. This is too delicate. Once these schedules are adjusted by the feds, I think you'll see more physicians coming in because they won't have that thing hanging over their heads. Let's give this system a chance to work some before and see, can't we build up the numbers? Is that fair? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I take it you're for the bill.
Yes, sir.
Al, I take it you're in favor.
Yes. Are we going to vote, Mr. Chairman?
We are fixing to vote
I won't leave until you
if
vote.
it's, all right, I see that we have just about unlit the board now. All right, committee members, you have in front of you a substitute to Senator Brass's bill. And I'd be remiss if I didn't make one editorial comment to this. You know, I listened to this issue for several years. I was on the original panel when we did the medical cannabis. And I've always thought things were somewhat hypocritical to the fact that we have the most readily available illegal substance. It was a Schedule I at the time, and it's called street weed. And one of the issues that we had concerns about was making legitimate, organically grown product available, unadulterated. No fentanyl, no heavy metals, none of that kind of stuff. And and I will tell this committee, from the questions that were asked today, there's nothing perfect. There's nothing. until the day comes that it can be totally legalized as far as a medical product. But that day won't come because I don't know how many folks will do it, because you got so many folks who are afraid of the demons. So this is the best can to be done. I commend Dr. Newton for trying to clean this up. When we started these meetings back in the spring or summer last year, whenever it was, I told him then that my views was that we have been treating this, and we legalized it as a medical product. And let's quit being hypocritical about it and treat it as a medical product. Let the doctors prescribe strength and delivery system. Now, I have heard from a lot of my vet friends, you know, they've been smoking weed for 50 years since they come out of Vietnam, you know, and they're hard to buy into it. They can still go out on the street and buy whatever they want to, probably a lot cheaper. But at least this is pure, it's unadulterated. So there's where we are. There's nothing perfect about any legislation. So that being said, Mr. McDonald.
Yes, at this time I'd like to make a motion that we pass SB220.
We have a motion and we have a second. Mr. Ridley.
Oh, I'd just like to make one comment. I don't know this place, but you're saying that you got to go to a doctor to be able to get a prescription, and is there a dispensary and a doctor together that's going ahead and issuing a license right now? Well, on Friday at 3:30, somebody went and got one in Chamblee. So how's that happen?
They got a card?
They got a card at the same place.
Oh, I don't know that you can't contact, but I don't know how you picked up a card.
They got a card. They got the card. They got the prescription or the recommendation and a card at the same place.
I think we need to say hallelujah, praise Jesus, because if they got the Department of Public Health to issue that quick, that's a shock.
They
well,
pre-read this bill.
That's my concern.
So I would
are we issuing cards anywhere else besides?
I'd be concerned that was a counterfeit card or an illegal issued card if it didn't come from Public Health.
Okay, so they all do have to come from Public Health.
All cards have to come from Public Health.
Okay,
correct.
All right. We have a motion and we have a second. Do we have any comments, any amendments?
Thank you, Chairman. It's more of a comment. First of all, I appreciate all the changes that you've done. I go down the list, and I think everything's a good move. I believe in the vaporization. Moving forward as this legislation goes, I do hope two things. One thing is there's a conversation about the potency, or at least how many milligrams can come in one serving somewhere. Whether it's 2.5, I know we say 2.5 for a vape. Then I hope there's conversations about that. And then the other piece is, I don't know how the Cannabis Board works from the reporting standpoint that they're talking about. But if there's a way to put stuff in this legislation to make sure that if somebody's abusing it in that reporting, that you maybe you put their card on hold for a month or something, some kind of suspension, some kind of, if you got somebody abusing the system. And they may be in there. I'm not I don't know how it all works, but I think having that conversation is important as we open this thing up. So
you raise a good point, and frankly, the PDMP, which controls all other scheduled drugs, especially as this one comes off Schedule 1, it'd be great. I'd support adding it to that one that we have to check before we prescribe any controlled substances. So I would support that as well. Thank you.
All right. Representative Jackson.
Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time, I'd like to strike out line 407.
You're making a motion.
Making a motion,
on
yes, sir.
line 407 that we strike from 3 parentheses through individual,
Correct.
which would say in any manner, in any public place by any individual. And that would, in fact, strike the whole section.
The whole section. Yes, sir.
All right. Second. All right, we have a motion.
Can I mention something, Chairman?
Yes, sir.
The goal of this section was primarily on smoking and vaporization and the potential effect of downstream smoke on other people. would the member consider changing the line 407 to just say, by vaporization in any public place by any individual? It's unlawful. We really felt pretty strongly that vaping your private medical, that the use of a vape pen, which you may need to take 4 puffs of a vape to get 10 milligrams. It's about 2.5 milligrams a puff. The idea of that going on in public places with all the downstream potential effect on other people that are exposed to that. I agree with you 100% that somebody that needs it should be able to take a gummy or a dose of medication if they need to, but vaping in public of cannabis, it has a strong odor. It has a potential effect on other people. I sure wish we could. I know I'm not a member of the committee, but just as the bill sponsor, I would prefer if you would be willing to just let the line continue to prohibit just vaporization in any public place by any individual. But that's not just a request, sir.
May I respond, Mr. Chairman?
Certainly may.
So I was just at a Super Bowl party last night.
We're bringing it timely.
And there were gentlemen and no ladies, but all gentlemen, vaping and smoking cigars. I never smoked in my life. And I hate cigarette smoke. I hate cigar smoke. Right? But I didn't want to impose on them. We were at a public place, sports bar, watching the Super Bowl. Right? Now, someone could say, Derrick, if you don't like cigar smoke, just leave. That's a choice. But I'm just saying, if I have one of my sailors that served with me for 22 years and they were having a crisis last night at a Super Bowl game, I want them to resolve their crisis and not having to think, man, I'm breaking the law because I'm at a sports bar. I want them to get their crisis mitigated. So all I'm saying, because of what just took place last night with myself, and I'm reading this, I'm like, when I'm reading this verbatim, and that's why at first I'm like, I just have a problem with it. I just have a problem. There's a level of personal responsibility, and if we're trying to legislate that, because when you say in any manner, in any public place, by any individual, that's anything.
As I said, if it just prohibited vaporization, there's 2 reasons. One is that it's a potential effect on other people, which we don't know yet because it hasn't been allowed or in Georgia at all. It's also, I think, not just a threat to downstream secondhand smoke. There is a question of whether it's a threat to the entire bill, because if all of a sudden we have vaping of medical cannabis in all sorts of public spaces, not the cigar bar you mentioned, but all sorts of others that's all perfectly legal, I believe that could raise a threat to even the expansion that's offered in this bill. But that's just sponsor's opinion.
Well, I made a motion and it was
All
second.
right, we have a motion. Comments. I see 2. The lights are up again. Representative Jenkins.
Yeah, I just want to say, first off, thank you for all the work the committee's done. We have to realize that when we're talking about this, this does challenge some societal norms, and I think and we've talked about a lot of those today. This is the logical next step in its current form, and that, you know, I don't think we're done with this. Like, I imagine in a few years we might work on this a little more.
A few years? You think these veterans who need the fresh flower home grow are going to want to wait that long? This needs to be amended ASAP.
But I do think this is a logical next step with all the, you know, maybe some quirky stuff like this kind of stuff. We just need to accept that, move on with it. And so I oppose the amendment, and we'd just like to see it passed like it is. And let's just work on it again in a few more years once we get more comfortable and this ferrets itself out a little better.
All right, thank you. Al Williams, Dr. Williams.
I really wasn't going to say anything because I understand things are much easier in the Navy than they were in the Army, so it's easy on you guys. I mean, we had to go down in the rabbit hole and shot from 20 miles away. But in all sincerity, here's the only thing I'm saying, and I didn't want to get in the middle, but breastfeeding is essential when a baby's ready to be fed. They want to be fed.
What the hell did he say?
But I was not speaking to the chairman, but anyhow.
It's a hot mic.
Yeah, that's what scares me.
Yes,
but
sir.
we set up feeding stations where they would be private, because I should not have to watch you breastfeed your baby. So it's completely private.
Speaking of cannabis delivery systems in public.
Also, breast milk has endocannabinoids. Scribbles. Let's keep this, Well, it is true. We have an endocannabinoid system, and there are 2 cannabinoids that we make when we're nursing babies, and they actually help babies to be stimulated to actually suck the breast. And without those cannabinoids that we make, then that wouldn't happen. And I might have to overdub some of your thoughts with that.
Okay, it's overdub time. Get into your positions.
Well, I'm looking in the handout and I don't see anything about boobies.
Who's gonna Google it?
You mean Google? I guess now we know why those are so addictive.
Right? I just got that neurotransmission too. Boring. Wait, what does this say? Okay, add another superpower to the list.
Boobs.
Well, we can't ban them, but we can control them. So if we extract all the cannabinoids from breast milk, we don't have to legalize weed.
I feel very uncomfortable right now. Very uncomfortable.
And then we can administer it in a typical bottle.
I think it'd be wise if I stay out of this conversation. It's making me kind of sad.
I'm crying. Is that the magic of raw milk?
Great. My committee's turned into a bunch of babies. I need my mommy.
But anyway, I think that everyone knows what we're talking about now.
If, and again, I'm following my medical advisor here and advisors, if there's a potential that this vaping can affect those that it's not supposed to affect, I got a real problem with it. Because if I'm there, and I'll be honest with you, I enjoy a good cigar, but I never light one. I'm an anomaly. But I don't go on Monday night cigar caucus because I can't stand to stand around and then I can't wear the clothes anymore that week. But all I'm saying is I don't think it's unreasonable to ask folk to refrain while you're in a public setting. You can, and if you reach the point where you're reaching a crisis, excuse yourself and go down the street and get you a hit and come back. But you shouldn't do it in a crowd, because I have no choice then but to inhale something I might not want to experience. Now that's just Al Williams, dog-faced soldier. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
No, I've heard a little bit about everything, and when you bring out breastfeeding. All right, Mr. Ridley, one more time.
I won't second the man's motion down there. Hell, I might not know I need it until I get a little taste of it.
All right, we have a motion and we have a second. All right. And as long as we can quit damn scurrilously talking about people who smoke a good cigar, then let's move on with it. We have a motion and we have a second.
On the amendment?
We've got 2 seconds. All right. Any other comments? Good. There's none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? I think it's a no. All right. Do we have any other amendments? If not, you have before you LC 339865S.
As you can see, the amendment failed, but I think if they would offer the amendment to change line 407 to just not vaping in public, that would be great, okay? I really hope that happens. I hope we add actual flour to the bill, and I hope you can see that it is just downright un-American to say someone can't take their medicine in a public place if they're having an attack or a seizure. I mean, seriously, if they're having a seizure, they can't go down the street and take it. So, just stop.
We have a motion on the table, no further controversy or off-the-cuff comments about certain issues we don't want to hear about.
I'm watching. I'm watching you. I see you with both eyes.
Yeah. If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
It is a day when Jason Ridley votes against this. All right, the ayes have it, and your bill is on the way, and thank you for all the work you did.
Well, thank you to you and your committee, sir.
Now.
Thank you.
We have one last bill in front of us, but I think we have run out of time. We're actually 20 minutes past. So,
Hey, Chairman, you've put a lot of work into it, a lot of thought into this.
Give it some shot. We'll try to help.
Are you able to?
We'll bring up House Bill 10.
by any chance?
We'll hear House Bill 1095 at the next meeting. Thank you.
Just gonna keep giving each other.
All right. Thank you for watching this all the way to the end. I appreciate you. If you would like to throw me a tip for my time and my energy, that'd be awesome. I'm just doing work that needs to be done. It's like cleaning up trash that was left on the street. No one pays me to do it, but this world is a more beautiful place when we all clean up the litter that someone else littered. But it'd be nice if they didn't litter in the first place. And yeah, I'm talking about you legislators. Can you please stop littering us with ignorance and lies? Because someone is having to clean it up for humanity. And it's not just me. All the activists and advocates are working overtime and not getting paid to clean up the mistakes of ignorance that has been going on for over 100 years, and it needs to stop now. Have a beautiful day.